Welcome to the second episode of So You Want to Buy a Business. My name is Kira Hamilton. I'm a laundromat owner and SBA loan broker. And this podcast is all about the entrepreneurship through acquisition journey. In each episode, I'll talk with ETA entrepreneurs and people involved in the ETA process to give you insights into what it's actually like to acquire and operate a business. My guest in this episode is Hiep Lee. He's a former client of mine and the owner and operator of Hall's Furniture in Sacramento, California. I hope you enjoy the conversation.
Hello.
Hey, Hiep, how's it going?
Good. Can you hear me?
I can hear you and I can see you now. Success!
Yeah, it took me a while, but I'm glad we made it. Yeah. So very good to see you.
No worries. Good to see you too. How have you been?
I've been great. Very busy running the business now. But feel much more energetic and much more fun and excited to go to the store every day and, managing things. So yeah, feeling great.
I love to hear that. And that is exactly what I want to talk to you about today is what it was like to buy your business and what it's like to operate it. I really appreciate you joining me for this podcast. You're going to be my second guest and I'm excited to get into it with you. Do you want to start with an introduction of yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I was born and raised in Vietnam, and then I moved to the US to Sacramento with my whole family as immigrant. And I started going to ESL school to learn English, and eventually, I think I spent like a year study English, and then I go to a local community college in Sacramento. It's called CRC. I spent 2 years there, and then eventually transferred to UC Irvine in Southern California for my business degree um, in focusing on marketing and finance. And then after that, after graduated, I moved to San Francisco, worked for a corporate job, kind of like a financing consulting role for about 6 months. Realized that it's not for me, and then decided to, go out and start my own business. Um, Wanted to start my own business, but then read a lot of statistics showing how hard it is to start a new business and the crazy high um, chance of failure. So I decided to buy a business instead. And then working with you actually to get the loan, the SBA loan, and then now I'm here. Now I'm a owner of a small local furniture store in Citrus Heights, California.
Wow, what a success story. And yeah, just for context for people listening, that is how we know each other is I brokered the SBA loan for your acquisition. And wow, what a cool story. How old were you when you moved to the US?
I was 19, so I just finished high school in Vietnam. And then, my whole family moved here with me.
Did you speak any English before you moved, or did you completely learn English here?
I spoke a little bit of English, so um, I didn't learn so much from school because I didn't really pay attention in English classes. That's actually my least favorite one because it's so difficult for me. But I really like watching movies and TV show in English. Um, I remember when we first had the cable TV in Vietnam when I was probably in 10th grade. That's like freshman of high school in America. We had cable TV, and then we have HBO and then Disney Channel. So, all of those TV shows like the Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, all of those like very, very old school TV show back then was like so cool for me. And not just the story and the show, but also like seeing the lifestyle of the Western world, which is very much different from Vietnam. So I
Hmm.
watch it every day, and then I remember the very first show that I got hooked to was How I Met Your Mother, um, and that's the one that I learned a lot of English from, like all of the idioms and slang and stuff like that. Um, so when I moved to America, I had like I would say I can comfortably having a like a conversation with a stranger, but not like as fluent. I still have to think in Vietnamese and then translate to English. So it was the barrier for me. So I still had to spend a year in ESL school to learn and improve my English. And then yeah, eventually when I go to college, I surrounded myself with all of the English speaking people. It helped, and yeah, it's become natural, not having to think in Vietnamese and translate in English. And yeah, so that's how I learned English.
Well, I'm going to say I'm very impressed because your English is great. And the fact that you didn't grow up speaking it, you learned it here, then went to school here, and now you're a business owner in the United States. That's
Thank
amazing.
you.
Something I'm interested in is, I'm a business owner myself, as you know, but growing up, that was never something I imagined for myself. I obviously knew businesses existed. I was aware of the idea of starting a business, but the idea of buying and selling businesses was never really something that occurred to me as something you could do with your life. Have you always wanted to own a business, or like when you were younger, is this something you thought about at all?
Yes. So I grew up in a family in where my both of my parents are like very much into being their own boss and like running their own business. So they own a chain of coffee shops in Vietnam when we lived there, and I think my mom never had to like work for someone else, and she had that mindset, and then she tried to transfer it to me that like if you whatever you do in life, but you have to be like not like a like the owner or something, but have to be like a person who just to strive for being a leader, like maybe like a manager, whatever job you do. So and seeing her running things with my dad, or like running the business, I always found that fascinating. And that's when I moved to America. I decided to went to business school, majoring in business, even though all my cousins, my uncles, my aunts say, try to get a job in the state, go learn to become an engineer or like a pharmacist. You're gonna make a lot of money, and then when you retire, they're gonna give you a bunch of like pensions and a lot of benefits and stuff like that. But I never interested in any of that, and I during when I was going to a community college, I like going to Facebook Marketplace and trying to buy like flip things, like buy phones and sell it for a little profit. And I always like dealing with people, um, trying to like make some like money on the side like that. Um, and I thought that that's what people go to business school for, to become a business owner. But later on, I found out that that's actually a different story. But yeah, I always had that like that mindset and that drive to become a business owner one day. Um, so yeah, I guess I had that in me.
Well, that drive was very apparent to me when I worked with you because you were so on top of everything. It was very clear you were motivated to get it done, and you closed in December, right? So you're coming up
Right.
on 4 or 5 months here of owning your business. Tell me what made you want to buy a furniture store?
Yeah. So when I first moved to America, my uncle owns two furniture stores and two small mattress stores. So that's my very first job moving to America. Um, I working as a not really like a salesperson, but it's just a very small, like a 1,200 square feet mattress store. He has probably like 10 different mattresses in there, and usually they're not like brand name at all. It's just like local mattress manufacturer in Sacramento. Um, and that's like a affordable one. So that's for like a low income neighborhood. So he just, put me on there because he thought I like, doing sales and stuff. So he just put me on there and pay me I think probably like $60 a day back then, working like 8 hours. So I just, be there by myself and answering the phones. And if somebody come in trying to sell them, help them find the mattresses. So that's how it all started. I worked there for a year, and then eventually he moved me up to his bigger furniture store. I worked with him during the college, just part time, like 3, 4 days a week. Um, And eventually, when he go on, vacation in the summertime, he put me in charge of ordering stuff, inventory management, dealing with all the vendors, managing the staff, delivery staff, and usually all of those people are just like within the family, like the uncles. So it's not like super difficult to work with. Um, so yeah, eventually I found that running the furniture store is actually pretty interesting, and sometimes you can make a lot of money if you sell like a high ticket item, and not a lot of overhead, not a lot of not have to deal with staff in general. Just some delivery team of 2 or 3 people, and then another salesperson. So I found it pretty interesting. So that's when I graduated and was working at a corporate job. I still keep in touch with my uncle, and I was actually trying to buy his store because he's also close to retire. But eventually it didn't work out, and then I started looking for a furniture store because I have the experience on running it before. Um, yeah, and then saw Michael's post on Business by Sale, and yeah, luckily everything worked out at the end.
Yeah, and I'm glad it did. I don't know how you feel about furniture, but as you know, I own a laundromat, and I wouldn't say I mean, I think, laundry is good, it's necessary. I wouldn't say I'm like personally passionate about laundry, but I've come to find that for me, it doesn't matter so much exactly what the business is, as long as it's like legal and ethical and moral and all that. But what's more important is just the opportunity to run a business and to, like you said, be a leader and to get to think creatively and problem solve. Is furniture something that you are passionate about, or is it more just about running a business?
I would feel more like you about the laundromat. I'm not like someone who into interior design or nothing like that. Um, for example, my bedroom is just basically just a queen mattress and then a box spring on the bottom. There's not really a lot of things going on there, so I'm not really into all of those design stuff. But I think I'm just like you. I enjoy running business and dealing with customers. I love talking to people. I love helping people find something they need, and when they walk out, put a smile on their face and be able to satisfy the need that whether it's a couch or it's a cup of coffee. Like I used to work for Starbucks. I just feel happy doing customer service. So um, for me, that's just yeah, that's just about um, dealing with people, which I enjoy, and yeah, also running things. And um, I think furniture also much easier type of business in compared to other retail stores. For example, electronics or all the small items. Now you have a bunch of stuff online, like Amazon, that you have to compete with. But furniture is unique in the way that if you need to buy like a couch, you probably want to go sit on it first, or like a mattress, you want to go lay on it first. I know that
Right.
there's a lot of successful like e-commerce, like furniture store online, but I think there's still a need, especially for older folks. They still want to try it out before they buy. So I think furniture have that unique um, value propositions that's a furniture retail store still have. Um, so yeah, that's I know that's a long answer, but I hope it answer your question.
It's funny when you talked about like you don't have a lot of furniture going on at your house because kind of similar for me. Like I don't fold my own clothes well. I just kind of roll them up and stick them in my drawer. So I wouldn't say my personal laundry situation is top notch, but I can fold well and I do fold well for our customers. Um, and yeah, I think you're right about furniture because there has been a huge increase in furniture available online. But if you order a piece of furniture and then it doesn't end up being comfortable, that's kind of a big pain in the butt to have to return it and pick out something
Yeah,
new. Like, I totally see how there's still just like, trying on clothes in person. There's a big benefit to being able to go and actually seeing if it's comfortable, especially if it's something you're going to use every day. So you mentioned you were working a corporate job in San Francisco and you were kind of starting to search. How long did you spend looking for a business before you found the one you ended up acquiring? And how much work was that process for you?
Yeah, so that's a very, very good question. So, truth to be told, I actually quit my job before I found out about business. And that was probably a very risky thing to do. I wouldn't recommend anyone following the same path. So 6 months into my corporate job, that's what I thought I always wanted. The idea of putting suit and tie, walking into a 80 story building and in the financial district of San Francisco, networking to a bunch of like finance people, consulting people. I thought that's what I wanted. But 3 months in, I was miserable. I had to spend probably about 12 hours, including commuting to work by the bus. So I didn't really have time to do anything else, and the work was just, a lot of work, a lot of talking, but also just solely remote, on a computer. Um, and I met a lot of interesting people. The role that I had was a lot of like young folks, like fresh out of college, like me. And even my manager is only like 2 or 3 years older than me. So the people I work with were great. But the job itself, um, well, which is not what I imagined, and I thought that I would enjoy and stuff, but it actually didn't work out. Um, so 3 months in, I decided to try my best to like perform at the highest level as I can. So on my fourth month, I think it was August of 2022. So I was basically the top. I think I was within the top five performer of my role as a client services associate on that month, and I thought that would make me feel great and have give me like some momentum to continue the job. But I realized that I didn't like all of the corporate structure, all of the office politics, and what you need to sacrifice in order to move up to the ladder of the command chain. Um, and I also work with a lot of consultants from like big companies like Bain, McKinsey, which is my plan to eventually move up there and work at those big companies and work in the consultant space. Um, but I also their life didn't seem um, like what I'm striving for. They travel like 60% of the time and they work like crazy, crazy long hours. They make a lot of money, but I don't feel like we have a lot of freedom um, if we continue on that path. So after 6 months, I decided to quit my job. Luckily, I have some saving. So I was, it was kind of crazy, but I was quit my job, my corporate job in San Francisco, and then the next day after I quit, I signed up for Lyft, and then I just be a Lyft driver in San Francisco. I did that just to, make enough money to pay the bills while I figure out what I'm trying to do. So I remember I was driving for Lyft like 4 or 5 hours. I started at 8 o'clock and then finished the day at like 12 or 1. Because yeah, just to make like $150 a day, to pay for all my bills. And then later on, the rest of the day, I just went to a library in San Francisco, in the Richmond area, like a local library, and then just did all the research about starting my own business. I look into like e-commerce, like Amazon FBA, all of that, and then eventually, found businessbysell.com, and then I started looking, and I saw like furniture store and all of that. And then, I had that thought in me, maybe I can, go back to, furniture. um, so I called my uncle who was still owning the store, and he had some thoughts about selling the business, but at the end it didn't work. So I just continued doing the like driving Lyft in the morning, go to the library in the afternoon, um, and then did that for about let's see, probably like 3 or 4 months, um, and then moved back to Sacramento and then found, the business, micro business on business by sale, and then yeah, decided to proceed, move forward, and then now I'm here.
Wow. Was that scary to leave your job?
It was, you know what? It was scary, but I think I'm in a unique position that I had enough saving so that I don't have to worry about paying my bills. I think that's probably the biggest difference for me compared to all the people who trying to quit their job and started their own thing. I know that if I don't work for another year, I'm still gonna be fine. And I don't.
Hmm.
I think the biggest thing for me is that at that point that I was working at my corporate job, I always talk about what people think about me. Like my cousins are pharmacists, engineer. They're like they all like people who in the higher, like they have higher prestige, in their career and in society in general, like all perceived that way. So whenever I go home for dinner with my family, my parents always ask about how am I doing, or are you going to become manager, sometime soon. So I think that pressure me into following the corporate role and then that pathway. But then I realized that, I think I read somewhere online that in 100 years, after you die, nobody gonna remember who you are, even the people in your family. So, it doesn't matter what other people think about you. If they don't, if it's not important then why is it important now? So I quitted my job without, letting my parents know, without maybe only my one or two good friends know about that. And then even the whole story of driving Lyft and stuff like that, I didn't know until I moved back. But I think I did all of that because I'm very very fortunate to have a safety net of a good amount of saving. Um, and then I knew that if I continue following that corporate path, I just won't have the freedom that I always wish for. And I think that's probably the biggest um, thing that most business owners pursued, not necessarily because of the money, because a lot of us probably make less money when we start our own business rather than doing the full-time job, but it's about the freedom, and or at least for me, that's the why I decided to start my own business. Um, so yeah, so it was scary, but I look back, I'm still glad that I did that, and even now, looking back and driving Lyft in San Francisco actually also fun and got to talk to a lot of people and learn a lot of stuff. So yeah, I'm glad I picked that decision.
I'm glad you made that decision too. It really worked out for you. And man,
Thank you.
I relate to what you're saying, to parts of what you're saying. I also, before bought my laundromat, was working a corporate job in commercial real estate in San Francisco. And there were a lot of great things about it. I mean, I liked my director, I liked the people I worked with. Like it was a nice place to work. I was being given more opportunities. And honestly, I could have kept going down that career path and probably been really successful, but there was something more I wanted. I wanted more control over my time. I wanted more freedom in how I worked. And honestly, I probably work more hours now than I did when I just, had a typical job, but I have so much more control over my time and so much more satisfaction. So I really hear you on that. What did your family think when you eventually did tell them, I left my job, I'm going to buy a business? What was their reaction?
Oh, I was in shock. I remember my brother even told me maybe just start over again and go to a medical school. Try become a
Oh, wow.
yeah, try become maybe not a pharmacist, but like I forgot. I don't remember the word for it, but basically like a medical worker and making like 60, 80 grand a year. In Sacramento, you're still gonna live fine. Um, and I didn't want to, argue with him or anything. I just, basically smile and let it slip. So, and during that time, that's why I was working on the deal with Michael and with you and Belma on acquiring house furniture. So yeah, I think maybe that's why I will be able to pull it off. That I wasn't ashamed of the path that I choose. He thought a lot of people in my family thought that, oh, so maybe business degree was actually a like a failure. Is not really making him money. He's not having like a good stable job. I know that I can get probably at least like an accountant job in the state for the state in the Sacramento. Probably make like, I don't know, maybe starting up at 60, 70 grand a year and then eventually move up. And in when I was when I turned 60, probably gonna get a lot of benefits and basically live a very safe, simple life, make enough money to eventually buy a house and just like that. And that's the pathway that my family always want me to go to. So yeah, I do feel the pressure from them. When I moved back to Sacramento, I didn't really have anything going on, um, but they didn't know that I was working on all of that. Um, but yeah, I think if you have a clear pathway, because when I quit my job at in San Francisco, I spent a lot of time in those libraries trying to figure out what I'm trying to do, and I think at the end when I figure that out, I don't feel ashamed at what other people talking or thinking about things I do with my life. So I just kept going with it.
It's interesting because your parents were business owners, right? But it sounds like they weren't excited about you having that same path.
Yeah, so because when we moved to America, basically we started from scratch. So they had some money saved up, but um, like due to some like personal stuff with their marriage, so I don't want to get into all of that, circumstances. But basically, when they moved to America, they started from scratch, and they always thought that moving to America is a great opportunity for us to pursue like a good degree, like a high prestige degree, and a highly highly like prestige perceived by the society, like a lawyer, doctor. Like most Asian people are kind of think that way. That's like stereotype. So it's the same for my parents. They don't want me to be like my uncle, like very risky and business. Oh, tomorrow Amazon, Jeff Bezos decide to sell furniture online. How are you going to compete with him? They kind of have that mindset. So that's why for them, and I understand that, they want all the safetiness of the like the peaceful, easy life path for their children. Um, but yeah, that's just not for me.
Something I realized at some point when I was making the transition from a traditional 9 to 5 job to being a business owner is I think I had, and I think a lot of people feel this way, a sense of security with having a job, right? You get paid each month, you have benefits, etc. But the truth is, most jobs can let you go at any time. And especially with all the tech layoffs we saw in the Bay Area recently,
Yeah, right.
having a job has risk to it too, right? Like you are putting all your eggs in the basket of being with this employer. And at least when you're the business owner, you have so much more control over what you're doing, how much money you're making. Personally, I realized there was less risk going into business as opposed to having a job than I had realized. Okay, so you find, the listing for the furniture store. What site did you find it on? Did you say you saw it on LinkedIn or another posting site?
Yeah, before I answer that, I really like your point earlier. I want to quickly comment on that. So
Yeah.
earlier, you also said that, actually when you become a business owner, especially in the first year, you probably work much more than 9 to 5 job, and it's going to
Hmm.
be much more challenging because now it's just not just about you, it's about your employees, people who under your payroll and their livelihood. So you have to have much more responsibility, and you also have to worry about like insurance and things that can happen at the store, like you mentioned that you had to deal with some like homeless guy in your laundromat, and all of those stuff, like securities, all
Yep.
of that. So we ended up working more, but like you mentioned earlier, but we actually enjoy it more, even though 9 to 5 you don't have to deal with all of that, and still got pay like the fixed amount every month as long as you do enough, right? Uh, don't obsess your boss or whatever. Um, but I think you had a good point. It's probably about the control, and that's what drives me. Every day I wake up now, I'm much more excited to run to my store and talk to my employees, plan the day, tackle the day, and then plan about marketing for the store. Um, much more excitement rather than going on a bus at 7 a.m. in San Francisco. So I think that's what makes the difference. It's not just about making more money, but it's mainly about more control. Um, um, and back to your question, I found it on Business by Sale, and it's totally just by chance. I just Google furniture store for sale in Sacramento, and then somehow the algorithm list business by sale, and then loopnet.com on the top two. I think they're probably the two biggest um, website for that. So yeah, I click on there, and then I narrow it down to Sacramento County area, and then I found the listing. So that's how I found it.
Were you evaluating a few different listings, or did you just kind of get lucky and land on this one relatively early that you ended up buying?
I think I found three of them at that time. So I just, basically open a new tab for each. And then once I'm done with my search, I go back to those three that I pick out. And then I look at the numbers, um, history of the store, like the description. And the one that horse furniture, the one that I own right now, the one that's all the numbers make sense the most. And also I think the responsiveness of the sales agent also important, because I also call the other two just to pick their brand and try to find out about some numbers. But only Belma picked up, and then we ended up got things going very fast. I She sent me the NDA almost immediately after our phone call. I figured out within the next 20 minutes, and then by the end of the day she sent me all of the uh, profit and loss statements and everything about the store. So I look at it, and I discussed with my partner, my cousin, for like a day or two, and then decided to go to the store, and then everything just worked out. I think after I talked to the owner, Michael, is when I have the most confidence about, okay, this is something that I really want to pursue, and that's like a week after I found out on the website. And so I think I was just very lucky to work with the people in the deal, like Melma, the agent, and then Michael, the owner, and then eventually with you on the loan process. So very lucky, and that's how we be able to get it done within, I think, less than 2 months.
Man, big shout out to Belmont because you're right. She is super responsive. And I've got to say, not everyone in the industry has a high level of
Yeah,
responsiveness, unfortunately. I don't want to generalize too much here, but I do hear from clients too often that it's just hard to get in touch with the broker who's listing it. It's hard to get information. So I agree. I think you were totally fortunate to end up with a strong team there. When you were
right.
initially evaluating those few listings, can you go into specifics a little bit more about what were you looking for? What was your criteria that would let you know this was the right business for you to buy?
Right. So for me, and this is just a personal thing, is a location. So I don't want something too far away from where I live. Like I would say 45 minutes drive is probably the maximum. So I found a couple of them in Tahoe, in Truckee, basically like over an hour from our store, and I mean on my house. But it's still profitable. The numbers still look good, but it's just I don't want to deal with the drive. And I think I learned the same thing when you said one of your biggest struggle managing the laundromat was kind of far away from your house, and it
Mm-hmm.
actually created a lot of challenges. So yeah, that's the first thing. And then the second thing is I look at the Yelp reviews right after I know the name of the store. I think that for me, furniture retailing business is all about a customer service and about how you treat your customer. Um, because you know almost everyone can start a business, a furniture store if you have a good credit history and then start ordering from off the big supply. But it's the customer service and how you treat your customer that make people stick and want to come back and buy more stuff, and also tell your friends and your family to come to that store. So I look at I probably that's my main thing when I look at the business is their Yelp reviews and how they deal with their customer. And Hall's Furniture just have like the like a I think it's like 5.1 I'm sorry, 5.0 stars on Yelp with like 551 reviews, and then on Google they had like 4.9, 4.8 stars with like 100 review. So that give me the confidence that okay, they are doing business in the right way. And then when I walk into the store, I saw how, the sales rep talk to people, how the owner um, talk about the history of the store, how they always run it as a old school, old fashioned business way. Um, so that's the main thing. I think the reputation. That's what I was looking for. And then of course numbers. It got to make sense. It's got to be profitable. Um, but I care mainly about the reputation of the store and then the numbers. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that totally makes sense. That was something that I really cared about when I was buying my laundromat. And I remember when I was shopping your deal to lenders, I remember looking at the website and looking at the reviews, and that was something I put in my write up is, hey, this is a strong business, because who wants to lend on a dud with 2 stars, right? Unless you have a really serious plan for turning it around. I think generally speaking, buying a business that not only is doing well financially, but has a good reputation, it's kind of hard to put a price. I mean, I guess we do. That's the valuation of the business, but it's hard to put a price on, how valuable that reputation piece is. How did talks with the seller go? Was there any negotiation in any parts of the deal? Did things go pretty smoothly? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, before I answer that, I want to share like a little like funny story. I don't know if I told you during our last phone call, but when I was because I live right in the neighborhood of your laundromat in the Richmond.
Oh,
I live
right.
like
Yeah.
three blocks from there. So that was the time when I was driving Lyft and then go to the library in the afternoon. And I live in an apartment where we have the dryer and washer at the flat, right? So we don't have to go out and use laundromat. But sometimes I'm short on quarters, so I have to go to the local laundromat in order to exchange it to the quarters. I know that you guys don't want us to do that, but I still did that. So I went to
We'll
your
let it
your
slide this
laundromat.
one time, Hip.
Yeah. So I went to your laundromat on a weekend, and I actually thought about, this is actually an interesting business because there's only literally just one guy sitting there and he barely talked to anyone, and there's still a lot of traffic, people go in and out. So I actually thought about ask the owner about whether or not he's trying to sell the business. Uh, but I think for some reason at the end I just didn't. But maybe I could have beat you that time.
You might have beat me, Hip. Yeah.
But yeah, but and it also I look up online too, and I think even back then they had fantastic reviews, and the guy that I talked
Hmm.
to, like the younger guy with the glasses, he also super nice. So yeah, that's just like it's kind of funny that later on I found out that you the new owner of that store. It's just crazy how
Yeah.
small the
Funny
world is.
coincidence.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, but anyways, what was your question? I'm sorry.
Oh, just about, the process of negotiating with the seller. So, you submit the LOI. Was there any back and forth on any terms? Did that process go smoothly? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, very smoothly, and I think again, I'm just being very lucky, but I hope this will be a valuable insight for your listeners that when you go buy a business, trying to find someone that trying to retire or trying to move out of state. Basically, they just trying to, you know, get things close and also maybe try to get some money out of it before they retire or move on to the next part of their life. That is how you can get a good deal. Don't try to buy a business from like a 25 years old or 30 years old who is trying to get rid of the business and move on to something else, even though he still live in the same neighborhood. That would be tough. So for me, again, super lucky, super fortunate to work with Michael. He was 65 years old at the time when we talked, and yeah, he did well for himself. He got some money on the side, and he just basically he just trying to retire. The business is still profitable, still making money. Never got a single year of loss in the 78 years they're in business. Um, and the numbers that he asked for is also makes sense. So there wasn't a lot of negotiation. I just crunch all the numbers, and I think in about 2 or 3 years I can recoup that money, and own the whole store. So the only thing I asked for him is that if I sign a 10 years lease, I mean a 5 years lease, because he's also the landlord, for the context.
Right.
So if I do that, can you give me a couple months of rent for free so we can, get things started, put in some inventory in the store? And yeah, he agreed like very easily. So he gave me a couple months free rent, and yeah, I don't think there was any back and forth between me and Michael. He was super laid back and easy to work with, and I hope he feel the same about me too. I don't try to haggle about the price or anything, because I think the number was already good. So that's why we were
Mm-hmm.
able to move on so much faster on the deal and get things closed before the projected timeline.
Right. We ended up being early on that. And that's great to hear that things went smoothly. And I completely agree with your point that understanding why the seller is selling is probably one of the first things you should understand when you're
Yeah, yeah,
seriously looking at a deal. And actually talking to the seller
yeah,
themselves
yeah.
can give you so much information, and just reading like how genuine do you seem? Do I get the sense that
Yes,
you're telling me the truth? And yeah,
a
why are
hundred
you
percent.
selling? Is it because you're retiring? Is it because you are more interested in a different type of business? And yeah, I would be skeptical if someone's not giving a clear answer, or they're not moving, they're not retiring, they're not planning on buying a different business. Well, then what's wrong with this one? Why don't you want to keep
Exactly,
it? Right.
exactly.
So, yeah,
And like
that's
you
so
said,
important to
like
understand.
how honest they are about their business is also the number one thing. Michael never tried to exaggerate about how his store performed. So I asked him on average how many customer you have a day, and he think about it for 2 3 seconds, and he say like probably like 4 or 5. He didn't try to say, oh, we have like probably like 20 people coming in and out. And I
Right.
just want to know all of the facts about the store, and then together, if those factors that he told me like correspond with the numbers on their performance, on their revenue, then we know that is he's an honest person. And you don't want to buy your first business from someone who's trying to lie to you. And and from any perspective, trust is something that you have to have trust and confidence in the buyer. If you don't, if you feel like something wrong, even a little bit something wrong about the things that they're trying to sell you, then maybe have a second thought and do more due diligence. So yeah, I totally agree with you. Talking to the owner, um, really try to read, see if he's genuine, and what is his motive to sell is the very important thing.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the financing a little bit. Obviously, that's the part of this I was the most involved in. I know how it went, but I think listeners would be interested to hear from your perspective as a borrower. You went through SBA. What was that process like for you?
Yeah, so I learned about the SBA loan because when I was working at my corporate job, I deal with a lot of private equity firms. So what my job was working with the private equity firms, helping with their due diligence. Of course, the scale is much larger. They're looking at companies who's doing 10 millions or more, a year or even more than that. Um, but I learned about, yeah, in America, you have the option to start a business or buy a business, even with very little or no money. So I look into that, and then when I look on the listing of Belma on business by sale, it said SBA loan approved, and that's also another thing. If something is some listing that say like that, meaning that they have a strong profitability. So yeah, I talked to Berma, and basically when the SBA lender they look at the business itself, if it's already strong, then it's already like half the battle for you to get approved. So the other half is just you have a strong financial statement, you don't have a bunch of debt, you have like a valid high credit score, which I were able to have all of that. So at the end, I you work with me directly, so you kind of understood the little like challenges we have. We probably don't need to go into details on that, but at the end, it still all worked out. So I think that's just the two things. So the business that you try to buy is have to have a strong profitability, and then your personal finance, you also have to be clean, no debt, no like good credit score, no bankruptcy history, all of that. And then you also have like a clear business plan of what you're trying to do with that business. How are you trying to grow it? Um, and that's pretty much the criteria to get approved.
I think it's worth noting. I think Belma had shopped your deal to a lender before connecting you with me, and I don't remember the details, but it wasn't a good fit. And then I shopped your deal to a few lenders, and there were a couple it wasn't a good fit for, but then obviously we got it funded. So, every SBA lender is different in what they're looking for and the types of deals they like. So, for people listening, if you get turned down from one lender, it doesn't mean it's not a good deal. It just means for whatever reason, it wasn't a good fit for them. And then we got you financed, and it was fast. I want to say it was maybe 40 days from term sheet to close. Does that sound right?
Yeah, yeah, it was crazy, and I know that I already, vouched for you. I already give you a good review on Google, but for your listeners, if they try to, find a lender, I can't recommend Kira enough because not only you were able to help me find the right lender, but also you make me feel like you genuinely trying to help me. Because I also talked to a couple other people, like broker that Belma recommend. They talked to me for like 15 minutes, and then they said they're gonna call me, and then they never did. And I texted them asking them, "Hey, what's going on?" They also never reply. So that, like, there's no respect in those. They just feel like, oh, he's not a candidate, so just screw him, just ignore him. But you wasn't like that. I feel like I was lucky to have like someone like you who actually care and try to make it happen. So that's also a huge factor. And then the team that we work with, FSG, they also amazingly, like cooperative and helpful, and I think that really helped. Yeah,
Well, I really appreciate that, Hip. Thank you so much for the kind words.
yeah, of
You
course.
know, I'm a business owner myself. I've been through the acquisition process. I know how frustrating it is when you're trying to get something done and someone's not getting back to you. That's the worst. Everyone's got to be on their A game in order to get the transaction done. And you were fantastic to work with because you were so on top of things, and it was just a great process. So I'm very glad I could help you. I'd like to hear a little bit about, you acquired the store successfully. What has your life been like since then? What does your day to day look like as a business owner?
Yeah, so of course, I'm excited. Of course, I am, full of energy and listen to now, like trying to, I'm very happy that now I finally own my own business, but it also come with a lot of challenges. And one of the thing is the responsibility that I mentioned earlier that now you have toward your staff. your employees, uh, the anxiety that every month, every single month, you have to start fresh over again because we are a retail store. So I remember even now, and so now it's like the 12, and then I'm like, oh, okay, so now we will be able to pay for the rent of this month. Now we just have to make sure until the 20 we'll be able to pay off the payroll for the employees before we, thinking about getting profit from the store, right? So it's come with a lot of responsibility, and of course you own a business, so it's much more risky. So you have to really, really, really be good at managing finances, because now it's not just your personal finance, which you can be neglect, uh, and stuff, but now it's just for the livelihood of other people. So I would say managing finance like for the store and budgeting stuff, it is the most crucial thing. But for me, so far, I enjoy all of it. I enjoy every bit of it. Now I don't, after 3 months, 4 months now, I don't have to work as much, as many days as before. I remember the first week I worked like 7 days, and then the month after that I worked like 6 days a week. But now things are, coming together, and I don't have to work as many time, and I have time to kind of zoom out of the daily operations of the store, and start to think about all the stuff that I can do to grow the store, to marketing, and put more customers in. So that's my main job now.
How much time would you say you spend in a typical week either working in or on your business?
I would say right now I'm at the store, directly at the store, be a salesperson and also managing the staff, 4 days a week. So the other 3 days I don't have to be at the store at all. And in that 4 days a week, that there's a one day that I can leave like before 12 p.m. So I really only work in like 3.5 days a week now. So the other two, 3 days, I can do my personal things, or I can still work on like marketing, growing the social media for the store and all of that. But that's just on my own terms, on my own time. I don't have to be physically at the store.
I'm sure before you bought this business, you had some idea of what it would be like to be a business owner, right? We all imagine what is it going to be like when we finally, have the business, we're running it. How did your expectations compare to the reality of it? Was there anything that surprised you?
Oh yeah, yeah. So you kind of touched on that earlier. We thought that we'd be more, we would have much more free time, and we're gonna just be the business owner, just counting the money at the end of the day. But it's not. You still have to roll up your sleeve, and you have to, um, you go in there, and you not just working to compensate for the hours so that you don't have to hire somebody, but if you're the owner, you want to understand every single bit of how your business run. And I think your employees will respect you more that way too. Like if you just a kind of owner who just drop by once a week to collect the money, you won't get that bond with your employees. You don't get that respect from your employees, that you, if things go wrong, you can still do it. I guess that's just how I like to think. Let's say if tomorrow something happened with my delivery guy, I can still get on the truck and get things done. Or if my lead salesperson is sick, I can still be on the floor selling furniture 10 hours a day for 7 days a week. And if you be only when you can do that, then your employees have the, confidence in you. They know that they are, following, or at least have like a competent leader so that they can rely on. And if something go wrong, like customer complaining, you want to be the person who can stand out and take care of that, rather than just ask your employee to do all of that work. So um, I think it's not just about stop by once a week and collecting the money, but it's all about being there with your employees, with your soldiers, and work with them, rather than have them work for you. That's what I told my staff. Like I want you guys to think that you guys working with me, not just work for me. Um, so that's just how I think.
think that's a great way to motivate people. And I'm glad you brought up this kind of idea of owner involvement, because this is different with larger size businesses, but I think for the size businesses that we have, when you don't have a ton of employees, if someone calls out sick, it's likely you going in to
Yeah,
cover, right? And so
right.
even though in a typical week you might have a business where you don't have a ton of responsibility, you do kind of have the responsibility of being on call, because if
Yeah,
something
yeah,
goes wrong, there's not a ton of people to cover, and it's your responsibility to step in and keep things moving.
yeah, definitely. I went on delivery a bunch of time in the last couple months, and I actually enjoy it. And you know, actually, it's gonna be beneficial for you as a business owner, so that you know about all the sales process. At least for my store, for my industry, you know about the customer walk-in, how do they feel, how who do they talk to you, what is the way that you greet them, and then after they make a purchase, how was the delivery done? So if I went on to that delivery, I know about how exactly it happened. I know how from the second that they walk to the store until they receive their couch at their house. What was the in between like? And as the owner, you need to know if you want to improve that whole process to make it seamless for customer, to make it, the most like easy, hassle free process for the customer. Then you have to first understand how it's done first. So I think it is super important that you involve at least for a couple of times, to understand that, and then you can come up with the plans on how to improve on each part of that process.
I think that's a really good point. And I think this could apply to any size business you have. It's really important to understand what it's like to be an employee, both so you get a sense of what it's like to interact with customers, how do you make things run more smoothly, but also to understand what realistic expectations are. I mean, I don't in a typical week do a ton of wash and fold, but I have done quite a bit of wash and fold just over time. And it's given me a much better perspective of how long does it actually take to fold clothes? How much is going on in a typical 5-hour shift? What's reasonable to expect an employee to get done? And if I had never stepped in and done that work myself, I might have an unrealistic expectation of, oh, well, they should be able to do this many orders, or, oh, it doesn't
Yeah,
seem like
yeah,
there's that much going on. They
exactly.
should be able to do this. When actually, there can be a lot that goes on at a laundromat just on a typical
Yeah,
day. And if you don't know what it's like on the ground, one, it's harder for you to fill in if you need to. And two, you could be asking your employees to do things that are unrealistic or that just don't make sense. So I agree. Actually, knowing how to work um, in your business, while you may not want to do that forever, I think is a really important thing to do, at least in the beginning when you acquire. So you have empathy for your customers, you have empathy for your employees, and you know how things actually run.
yeah, 100%. I agree with you. I mentioned the empathy for the customer, but you're right. The empathy for the employee is probably even more important. So when I was working at my corporate job, um, they call it the triangle philosophy. So what they say is that if you if the company put your employee at first as a priority, then the employee will put the customer at their number one priority. And then the customer, because of that, they will put your company at their top of the list. So that's kind of goal in the triangle. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, not just feeling the sales process for the customer, but yeah, when I went on those deliveries, I understand how things get done and what is the bottleneck of my employees. Like just a small example, I saw that the delivery guys every day they have to go next door at the liquor store next to my store to buy, those $4 Starbucks coffee, like the double shot, because they enjoy coffee. So I went away with them, and then I realized like maybe I can, we have a fridge at the store, so I can just stock it full for them, and probably, you know, I'm probably $100 poorer every month, but on the other side, my employees have much higher morale, and when they come into the store, they can just grab a drink and go, and hopefully they appreciate it, and also save their time and money going to the store to buy those. So like small little things like that, you can only learn when you actually go with them, working with them. Yeah. So I agree.
That is such a great example. And I mean, yes, it does cost you money to buy those drinks, but you're then comparing that to your employees see that you noticed something that they like and it would make their day more convenient if they had this item already there. It shows you're thinking about them. And I think employees do better work when they feel appreciated, when they like you as a person, when they see that you're looking out for them. And look, it's still important to hold firm expectations. It's still important to hold people accountable, but we can treat people well along the way, right? And I think ultimately that's better for business.
Yeah, and that's I think my like the previous owner of the store, Michael, has done very well. His customers absolutely love him. All of his employees adore him. They willing to work extra hours for him, not even like requiring, pay raise and all of that. And that only comes if they have respect for you and they know that you're competent and they know that they have trust, confidence in you, and they know that you are a genuinely good person, not just a greedy business owner just trying to make as much money while cheating their employees and their customer crappy. So I learned from Michael from that, and yeah, I think that's crucial for any business.
Hip, this has been a great conversation. I've loved chatting with you and catching up. You were a great client to work with for financing, and I love seeing you as a successful business owner. If people are in the Sacramento area, I definitely want to make sure they check out Hall's Furniture. Can you tell us your hours, where you're located, and your website?
Yeah, we open from 10 to 6 every day, and then Sunday from 10 to 4. We are at 7752 Mariposa Avenue in Cedars Heights, 95610. You can find us online at horsefurniture.com. And we also just recently started our social media presence. So if you search for Horse Furniture in Cedars Heights or Sacramento, you see our name pops up. Um, if you live in Sacramento and you're looking for a recliner, I would say that's our bread and butter. We actually have the largest selection of recliners in Northern California, even bigger than
Oh, wow.
RC Willey or Naturewood, all of that. So yeah, check us out. Um, Absolute pleasure to be here. Hopefully, my story can provide some, insight for your audience. But yeah, I this is my first time doing like a podcast or like interview, so I know that there's some part that I kind of answered a little bit long. So hopefully, your editing skill can make it more concise, so it's easier for your audience to follow. But yeah, thanks for having me.
Oh, Hip, you did fantastic. And first podcast, very impressed. Again, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for all your insights. I know folks listening are going to find them valuable. I hope people in Sacramento check out Hall's Furniture. And I wish you all the best with your continued business ventures. Thanks so much for the time.
Thanks, Kira. All the best to you as well.
Thank you.
All
Bye,
right, bye
Hip.
bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the second episode of So You Want to Buy a Business. You can support the show by subscribing. And if you'd like to get in contact with me to discuss financing for your next business acquisition, you can find me on LinkedIn, and I'll include my contact information in the show notes. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.